What's up everyone? Welcome to another video, and today we are going to do maintenance on Groot, my 1998 Mitsubishi Montero. So it's been my daily driver pretty much these past 7 years. So basically the past middle part of December, when we've been getting some of the stronger cold fronts, I was getting an oil smell. Come to find out, the passenger side valve cover gasket was leaking because it was wet, and actually was leaking to the manifold. That's why I was getting the smell. And then I was gonna go ahead and repair it, the original purpose of this video. And then earlier in the week, I was getting a fuel smell, and it got progressively worse. It was only in the mornings when it was cold. In the afternoon, when it kind of warmed up, you didn't smell it. I think the cold weather was constricting them, making them shrink, and then the fuel was leaking out because the one injectors up front, I could see it was really wet, and that's where the fuel smell was coming from. So I got all the parts. I got a bunch of extra parts, so I have all the seals for the injectors, and I even have a backup set of original OEM Denso injectors. I think I'm going to swap those out for the newer ones, and then these are still working. I'm going to probably keep these as backup and get them cleaned and store them and have them back up down the road. So the maintenance we're going to do in this video is we're going to replace the valve cover gaskets, spark plug tube seals. Alongside, we're going to also replace the spark plugs and new set of spark plug wires. And then obviously, because of the injector seals, seems like what's leaking, I'm going to go ahead and replace all the injector seals with the new injectors. But basically, there's going to be a lot of time lapse in this video, and then I'm going to pause in between to give you some tips and give you some of the torque specs on how to torque some of the plenum bolts, the valve cover bolts. Because what the notorious thing is, when you buy a used Montero or any car for any matter, a lot of the previous owners or wherever shops they had taken it to get service done, they don't necessarily follow the manufacturer's torque specs for certain bolts. So what happens, which is notorious for these Monteros, they over tighten the bolts for the valve covers and they kind of bent them. So what happens is the gaskets, they sit in a channel in the valve cover and they don't seat properly, and eventually what happens is it continues to leak. It never solves the problem. The only way to really fix it is just get brand new valve covers, or find some that have not been um, damaged. So what I did here is, because I am going to be doing something with the injectors, I need to clear out as much as I can out of the lines. So I removed the MPI fuse, so I can kind of just clear out the fuel lines so there's not a ton of fuel that comes out when I remove the injectors. So that's what I did first, and now we're going to just start taking stuff off, the air box and all that good stuff. Okay, now when you're removing this bracket, it's still here attached. This bracket connects this part of the plenum to, I guess, the block cylinder head area. You're gonna have to remove that. It's gonna be a pain in the butt to remove that bracket because, and also you saw me, I removed the battery. It gives you easier access to remove the bolts that for the bracket, especially the bottom two 14mm bolts. Okay, the top ones are fairly easy to access for the bracket, but removing the bracket you need to anyways, because it's much easier to remove the EGR pipe connected to the manifold, the plenum I mean, and then there's a vacuum line. I don't know if you see here, it's connected here, and it's this vacuum line right here. It kind of runs through up top here. You need to, that's being hidden by the bracket, and plus you need to remove the bracket because it kind of covers the valve cover gasket bolts, the middle one there. If you don't remove it, you're not going to be able to tighten it down. So yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but you're going to have to remove that bracket. Okay, got the plenums off. Now I can start replacing the parts. So we'll go to the valve covers. I was mentioning getting a burning oil smell. This I didn't have to take anything off because this is actually, you can see with everything on. But if you look closely, it is wet right over there. You can see the oil, you know, that oil residue right there. And then if you look at the manifold, it looks a little wet. So it was leaking from this valve cover gasket here. That's leaking, so it was coming over and eventually dripping into the manifold and burning oil and the oil smell. So it's the passenger side that's leaking. Driver's side looked fine, to be honest. I mean, it's a little wet, I guess, but either or, I'm going to replace both sides. Now, earlier in the video, I said I was also getting a fuel smell recently, and I showed you a video. That injector, because that's the one I can see up front, it was a little wet, especially during the morning. So obviously the seal where it was going to the rail was probably leaking. But now I have the plenum off. I may have had another injector that was probably leaking. I think it's that one here. Let me see if I zoom in. That one right there. There's a lot of debris. It looks wet, so I may have had two injector seals fail on me. So killing two birds with one stone on this job. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to tackle the fuel injectors first, and then do the valve covers. All right, so I have the wiring harness removed. So I cleaned it up a little bit, cleaned up the plugs because they were pretty dirty. Make sure all the contacts are nice and clean. But what I'm going to do is this old original conduit from the factory, it's kind of brittle. So some parts are. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to replace some of it, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of rewrap it with electrical tape, some of these sections. So might as well do it. Kind of this, a little maintenance thing for it. So yeah, let's do it. Okay, these are the spare benzo injectors um, that I have sitting just in case. So I'm gonna go and put new seals. I don't know if these came with them when I bought them, but I'm just gonna go and put new seals on here. I got back an Arnley seals um, kit, so it has everything. So I'm gonna put these on the new injectors, and these are gonna go in place of the original ones that were in the Montero. The ones in the Montero, obviously they're still working. I'm gonna go ahead and keep those as spares. I might get them tested and cleaned, and then keep those as spares. But these are gonna go in place of them. So let's get the new stuff installed. Okay, some of you might be wondering, why am I not using OEM Mitsubishi? Um, One, this is just a mid refresh, so I'm willing to use aftermarket parts. But the other thing is, I've had really good luck with Beck Arnley parts since back in the day with my Gallant VR4. So Beck Arnley parts, if you don't know, a lot of the time they rebox, let's say high quality aftermarket and sometimes OEM. What I mean by that is, years ago when I did my steering refresh on the Montero, if any of you know, like Sankey 555 is an OEM manufacturer for steering parts and suspension parts for like Toyota and Mitsubishi. Well, everything I order under Beck Arnley were all Sankey 555. And these gaskets here, if you look, is made in Japan. So these are the spark plug tube seals. And then this is the valve cover gasket made in Japan. I'm more keen to believe these are higher quality parts than made in China or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is like OEM-ish quality stuff. So I've always had great luck with Beck Army parts, and it's never really failed me. So that's what I'm going to do and replace them for this mid refresh. So let's continue. So here's the valve cover. This is the old gasket. It's still malleable, but you can tell it's getting there up in age. It's not super hard, but it is definitely harder than a brand new one. See, this is a brand new gasket. See how flimsy and soft it is. This one is not, obviously. It's hardened through many heat cycles. It's hardened enough to where it's causing a leak. I didn't get a video of it, but see, this is the channel it sits in, and you can tell where the gasket is leaking. I think this is the outside part. Um, the gasket was kind of shrinking. It was not even filling the channels. It was kind of shrinking, specifically right here, and this is where the oil leak was happening on the driver's side right here. This is starting to shrink. I didn't get video of it, so maybe when I do the other side, I'll show you. But yeah, that is the case. So we're gonna go ahead and put the new gasket in, and then start putting this valve cover back. Okay, once you get these 6 bolts off the valve cover, right, you got to remember, you got to take off these 2 10mm bolts right here on the cam cover. There's one right here, that one, and then there's another one here that you take off to inspect the timing belt. That one right there. Okay, because those are connected to the valve cover. Once you get those off, the valve cover should come right off. All right, I didn't show it on the driver's side valve cover, but I'm going to show it here in the passenger side. What I'm going to do is just clean up the valve cover a little bit since it's out. And honestly, you don't really see the valve covers. All right, I got the valve cover cleaned up pretty as much as I can get without going really too deep into cleaning it. So they should be somewhat malleable, where they're not rock hard. If they're really rock hard, the gasket, and they're breaking apart, that means you went way too long replacing the gasket. So to remove it, I get a little pick here, and then just gently pry. You don't want to ruin the channels here, because this is what keeps the gasket in. Okay, so I typically start where the bolt holes are and try to find the weakest point, just enough where you can get it separating from the valve cover. All right, the old valve cover gasket is out. So what I do is I just wipe down the channels. You know, if there's any debris out of there. There's not a ton here. I'm just wiping it down. All right, so, but as you can see, there was one point they must have done the valve cover gaskets, because I remember when I originally got the Montero in 2017, I did the gaskets. It was like this. Fortunately, the valve cover was not damaged, or so damaged enough where it didn't seal. But well, you can tell the previous owner, wherever if they did it, or the shop, not sure. I guess when they're prying off maybe the original gasket from factory, they were prying it too much, because see, it's not straight. You can see where maybe they were prying it, especially right here. This is really bad. It's not even straight. That's why it's very important to replace your valve cover gaskets in a timely manner. Here, this is where it was leaking, right? And this part here is stiff. I don't know if you can tell. It's pretty stiff, so it's hardened. But if you look at this is the gasket that came out. This is a brand new one. I don't know if you can see it. See how see the rebound? Kind of still retains its shape because it's a little hard. New one, very malleable. So that's the old gasket. We're gonna go ahead and put the new one on now. It's very easy. You just line it up. Everything lines up. This bad boy is ready to go back on the truck. All right, though the valve covers are done, injectors are done. I'm not going to tighten it down yet, because what I'm going to do is replace the rear cam cover seal O-ring. Since I have all this is off, it's easy to access, and it's just basically preventative maintenance, because eventually those are prone to leak with age, and it's already been 7 years since I've done it, so I'm just going to replace it now. It's only a $4 part, and since everything is off, the plenum, the throttle body, it's much easier. It sits right back here. It's a tight area. So just a tip for the rear cam cover O-ring: when you remove it, they're two 12mm bolts. Once you remove them, You gotta be very careful in removing the cover, because the ears of the cover, once I get it out, if you put too much force, and even if you try to pry them, you could break the ears, and then you're kind of stuck. I think they're still available from Mitsubishi, but just be cautionary when you remove it, and don't over torque them too. So once I put everything back in on the Montero, I will put on the screen the torque specs to torque down the bolts, so you don't over torque them and strip them and all that, and especially the valve covers. I will stop and give you the proper specs on that and how to torque them. Okay, so here we go. Okay, this is what we took out. This is the rear cam cover on the passenger side cylinder head. Okay, this covers the rear cam. Right, this is the seal O-ring that I'm replacing. Okay, these go bad, obviously, and what happens, like the valve cover gaskets, the seal gets hard and oil leaks through the back of the head, and then you'll have an oil leak dripping probably from the back of the motor transmission. This could be one of the culprits. So it's a cheap fix. You're already in there. It's $4. Just replace it. Okay. How I got this out is, like I told you, if you don't put too much force on these ears. If you do, you're gonna. This is aluminum, so it'll crack. So you have to kind of dangle it in a way. All right. You're gonna have to be gentle with it. So when I remove the bolts, when you remove the bolts, there's gonna be some type of, like, I think closest to the fender side will be a bracket holding the harness. So when you put the bolt in, you put the harness bracket there, and then same goes for the other side. There's some bracket there. But what happens is, once you get these bolts off, you try to twist it, okay, just to uh, loosen any type of maybe corrosion that might have gone, that may have happened, and also to get this kind of seal loose. Once you can get it moving like this, you can get like a flathead and gently, I would turn it till like one of the ears is facing up. It's the best angle. And then you just get the flathead and you gently pry. Okay, you gently do it. You might have to do it several times, but then this eventually you'll see it pop out. Once you pop it out, you can take it out by hand. Okay, so yeah, we're going to replace the seal. This is the part number for the seal, right? So that's the seal. So you just replace it and put everything back. What you can do also is put a light coat of like sealant here. It's just another preventative measure to prevent it from leaking, right? So it doesn't hurt to do that. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. All right, that's done. Now we're gonna get to spark plug. This is the last thing I'm gonna install before putting everything back together, right? So spark plugs for the what I use are the NGK. I would always recommend using NGK for Japanese vehicles, specifically Toyota and Mitsubishi. I don't have really experience with much with Hondas and Mazdas or Subarus, but NGK, Mitsubishi Motors and Toyota Motors like NGK plugs. Okay, so I went with the G Power. These are the platinum plugs. This is what actually calls from factory. Um, Technically, I should not have to replace these plugs, but I'm just gonna do it. I'm already in here. Why not? Okay, you don't have to if when you need to, because I'm sorry, you don't have to replace the plugs or the wires if they're not giving you issues. These plugs should last you, I believe, 100,000 miles. So it's really up to you. I'm just doing it because I'm already in here, so I might as well do it. That's my approach. You don't have to follow what I have to follow, but these are spark plugs if you're looking to do yours. So that's the part number, right? BKR 5EGP 7090, right? You need 6 of them, obviously, and then you need NGK wire set. If you want to go NGK, I like to use NGK plugs and wires together. That is the part number for the Monteros. I believe most of the 3.5 V6 6G74s. But yeah, this is what calls for 6G74 in the Gen 2.5 motor, the single overhead cam 3.5, right? So that's the part number for the NGK plugs. Okay, the spark plug socket you're gonna need is gonna be 5/8, right? 5/8 for your plugs. All right. Now, factory FSM recommends this on screen, the gap here plugs. All right. I'm gonna gap them at 1.1 millimeters. Okay, it's a fine line between 1 and 1.2. I'm gonna go right in the middle. Right, that's what I gapped the plugs in here 7 years ago. Has not given me any issues. That's why I'm gonna gap it. All right, we're at the point we're gonna start putting everything together, and while we're doing that, we're gonna torque bolts down to factory spec, what the FSM says. All right, so we're going to start with spark plugs. Okay, the spark plugs, the factory service manual says you torque them down to 18 foot-pounds torque. All right, or 25 Newton meters. All right, so my torque wrench here, I have it set at 18 foot-pounds, so I'm going to torque down the spark plugs. Okay, I'm going to tackle the rear cam cover bolts and then the valve cover bolts. Now, a lot of torque wrenches don't go really low to what these are asking from factory. I believe the valve cover bolts are 3 to 4 Newton meters, and I believe the rear cam covers, those bolts are at, I believe, what's it here? Let me read here. 13 Newton meters. Okay, so what I found is I got a torque wrench that's designed for like bikes and stuff. So this is it right here. As you can see, I got this through Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description. Um, so if you're interested in getting this, you can get it. Okay. So it goes to the lower torque specs that most of the half-inch and 3/8-inch torque wrenches don't. And some of the quarter-inch torque wrenches go only as low as like 10 foot-pounds. This goes down to like, I think, 2 foot-pounds or stuff like that. So um, it's really easy to adjust torque here. So I have it here for the rear cam bolts. They're 13 Newton meters. And right there it has NM, if you can read it, NM, and then it has the foot-pounds in here. But yeah, this is a really cool tool for the lower torque bolts, like the valve cover gaskets and the valve cover and the like bolts for the rear cam cover. It's very important that you torque these valve covers to what they are spec'd at from the factory. because like I said earlier in the video, if you torque them too much, you can actually bend the valve cover out of shape. And what happens is you're torquing them down, and then you're torquing it so tight, the channels that you saw me when I installed the gasket, they start to bend out, right? When they bend out, it no longer won't seal, and then you're going to have oil leaks on these valve cover gaskets. So the factory has it for the specs for that reason, and you should follow it. So when you tie it, there's not, it doesn't take that much to torque these valve cover gaskets down. Like I said, I have these set at 3 Newton meters. Okay, it's getting tight. There you go, see? Once you're done, that's it. Doesn't take that much. Okay, we got the we'd say the middle plenum installed. So pretty much from here on out, all the plenum bolts, right, are going to be 18 Newton meters torque spec. So pretty much everyone from here on out will be 18 Newton meters. So we're just going to continue putting everything back together and hopefully get this thing fired up. Okay, all I have left is mounting the throttle body, and the bolts for the throttle body is between 11.5 to I think 15, 14 Newton meters. I'm going to put it at I think 12 or 13, and all I have to do then is just hook up the plugs for the wiring harness, and then hook up the battery, and we're ready to go. Okay, the last thing we're going to hook up, as you can see, Everything, all the wiring harness, all the plugs are hooked in, air box is hooked in, batteries even hooked in. Last thing literally I have to do is hook up the spark plug wires. Now, if you look at the intake plenum right here, those are your cylinder. That's the firing order. They correspond to the coil packs. Never mind these. This was written prior to me. I don't know what they were doing here because it doesn't match. But basically 521436, okay? Because if you go to this bank right here, it's 642. And if you go to these cylinder banks, it's 531. Okay? So remember, on this side, driver's side, 642, passenger 531. This is you looking at the motor from the front, okay? Looking at it. So each the NGK plugs have the numbers on them. So basically all you have to do now is just match them up to where it indicates here. So this right here is 6. So plug 6 right here. That goes there. I believe that's 3. So plug 3 goes all the way here. So I'm going to have to route it. That's 3. This is 4, right? So cylinder 4 is wire 4 here, and that goes here. Wire 1 comes from this side, and that should be this one here. And that's 1. All right, so 2 and 5 are the last. So this is 2. So 2 goes here. And then the last plug is 5. Boom, there you go. All the wires are hooked up accordingly to the firing order that's there. So basically all we have to do now is make sure, start the Montero, make sure everything is running correctly, no leaks, and we're good to go. Make sure you put this fuse back for the fuel pump, right? Fuse back in. Okay guys, I mentioned early in the video, if you watched, I keep a log of my fuel mileage, my fuel logs on this website here, Fuely. This is my most recent log here, my most recent fuel up. So I got 14.1, which is basically the average I've been having for all these years. It went down after I did the lift and started adding things to the truck, obviously, because the truck became more or less aerodynamic. But anyways, 14.1 is basically the average of it. So just to give you a better idea, this is an awesome tool because you can visually see and keep track of what you're spending on fuel. And right here, this is the visual graph. So this is the first fuel up after we went on our camping trip, which makes sense. We were on the highway a lot during the trip, going back to the campsite and from back home. So I was getting I got 20 out of that trip. But this is just me normal driving, our daily routine, in a sense, weekly routine, and my miles per gallon were dropping because, like I said, I was averaging 14-15ish prior. And if you look after that trip, 12 and then right around the first cold snaps, the couple cold snaps, yeah, it just went straight down, worse to 11. So this is the first week right here after I did the injectors and the valve cover gaskets. I got 14.15, and then this is literally I just filled up this morning, and I'm averaging 14.10. So I'm back to normal. So that this shows you that's a big difference what was going on with the leaking injectors, and it was just throwing everything off how the truck was running. This is just an update. I've been driving the Montero for about a week now. Put I think around 100 miles. So basically, the valve cover oil leak and the fuel smell that I was having. The original reason I did this maintenance job is they're all solved. Not like no leaking, no fuel smell. Those are all gone. Um, Basically, after I did the job, I realized the Montero was actually not running very well for the past several months prior to me doing the job. Several months ago, sometime late last year, I put out a video. I replaced my evap solenoid, and because I was getting some similar symptoms with the fuel smell and running rough, it did solve the issue. It made it better, but it got progressively more worse as time went by after I replaced it, and I couldn't figure out why it was running that way. I thought it was something else, but I wasn't getting any evap codes or anything like that. It all disappeared. So basically, I think my old injectors, there was an issue with them. Either they were starting to fail or whatever. But after replacing the injectors that you saw on the job with the new seals and everything, the Montero runs brand spanking new. It's like when it's on idle, I don't even feel the engine like move. That's how smooth it is. Other than it motor making a noise, that's the only reason you know the Montero is running. My miles per gallon have improved, which I showed you a little bit earlier. That early morning cold start where the Montero just run rough, it just had like a weird misfire sound, and just running rough in the morning till it kind of warmed up. It's all gone. The Montero runs amazing ever since I did the job. So if you're experiencing any of these issues, it's probably something you want to look at. Obviously, do your diagnosis, check if you have any engine codes, check those out. But ultimately, I mean, the Montero has 260,000 miles, so I mean, more than likely, the injectors were probably on their way out, or they just need some real deep cleaning. I don't know. I'm gonna go dig into that. What I'm gonna do with those injectors down the road. But yeah, everything runs really good on the Monteros. So if you like the video, I'm sorry the video was long. I tried to go in depth as I can. Tried not to skip too many steps. I tried not to do a lot of cuts within the time lapse. So if this is your first time doing the job, or you're just trying to get an idea of what's involved in the job, that's the main purpose. I'm sorry the video is so long, but that was the intent of it being so long. I try not to cut too much into the video so you can see more of the step-by-step things that I did to do this job. So yeah, I hope that helps you out. If you like what you saw and you like what we have on the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next video. Till then, be safe, stay safe.